All right, everybody, welcome back to the Ready Set Hike football podcast. Second episode. Here I am with co-host Brandon, and I'm Paul. And in today's episode, we're going to be previewing the Week 6 matchups across the NFL and go through all the spreads and all the information about each matchup.
Awesome. Also, quick note before we start, thank you for everyone who supported the first episode, whether you followed us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, or subscribed here on YouTube. Did a lot better than we expected the first video, but now the first notes are the first nerves, are out of the way. We're kind of getting the groove of it. We still have a lot to work on, but that will all come down the road. With that being said, though, I just wanted to mention our socials once again. I'll have them down in the description as well. But on Instagram, we are Ready Set Hike Podcast. On Twitter, we're Ready Set Hike Pod. And on TikTok, it's just Ready Set Hike. And then obviously, you know what our YouTube is because you're watching us. But with that being said, let's get right into the Week 6 preview. For the week, first is the bye weeks. The teams on bye this week, which are the Lions, the Texans, the Raiders, and the Titans. I don't know if you wanted to start with the games or should I?
Start with the first game. Tonight we have the Thursday night game. It's kind of the first stinker of the year. It's Washington Commanders at 1-4 at the 2-3 Chicago Bears. I don't know, who do you think is gonna take it? It's an even line, so that means it's just a pick 'em.
In all honesty, I like the Commanders tonight. The reason, for my opinion, on why though is, I know we talked about it in week 1, or I should say the first episode. Justin Fields they don't trust him enough to throw the ball yet. I don't know whether that's new coaching or if that's just him not progressing the way they want, but he's only passed for he's not he's first off he's a top 5 bottom QB by rating right now on Pro Football Focus, if not top 3, and he's only getting like 10 to 20 attempts per game, while some quarterbacks are in the 40s. When you're limiting passing instantly, now all of a sudden you're a one-dimensional team instead of two. It's tough. And then also you look at the Commanders. Although Carson Wentz, in my opinion, is not a good quarterback, or is the future for that team, he's still better than Justin Fields. He's produced a ton of yards this year, and the offense is starting to get put together more and more. Whether that's the addition of Brian Robinson, who hopefully has a big game tonight, or we see him, get a little bit of more play time. But, what do you think? Who do you think is going to win?
I actually go the other way in this game. I think
Really?
I like the Bears in this game.
Really?
Although Fields has struggled, he's coming off his best game of the year and maybe his career. He performed well last week, even though they were unable to get the victory.
That is true.
And I like the Bears being at home, the home field advantage in the game. And I also just feel like the Commanders are on a little bit of a slide right now.
Yeah. I mean, the Commanders haven't done a lot on defense when it comes to, turning the ball over.
Yep.
Producing turnovers, I should say. I think they only have, 1 turnover all year.
Yep.
So, I get what you're saying, playing at the Bears, playing home field advantage for the Bears. Justin Fields coming off, like you said, his best game. I'm also a massive fan of Khalil Herbert, the running back.
Run game, the Montgomery's healthy now as well.
Also, they'll have both of them tonight.
Yeah, so they'll have both.
That's going to be interesting then. I honestly, maybe it could go either way, and I guess that's why it's an even line.
And I'm expecting a low-scoring game. I don't think either offenses showed that they put up a lot of points. So.
Honestly, I think there's going to be a lot of yards, but not a lot of points. I think it's going to be very similar to what we saw in the Broncos-Colts game.
Yeah, last week.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, football's football. I'll watch anything.
Even when it's a bad matchup, it's still
a matchup.
Still gonna watch it. Yeah.
Yeah. But with that, let's move on to the Sunday games that we have coming up. So we have Sunday. It's October 16th for this week. The 1 p.m. games. The first game is going to be 4-1 Minnesota Vikings at the 3-2 Miami Dolphins, and it's Minnesota minus 3.5 for the spread. Who do you got winning?
I like Minnesota a lot in this spot. I think the Dolphins are really on a decline. They've struggled since Tua's gone out. And then not only Tua's out, but Teddy Bridgewater, their backup, is out. So
Yeah.
they're going to have to deal with Skylar Thompson starting at quarterback. And I don't expect them to be able to defeat the Dolphins. I mean, to defeat the Vikings.
Yeah, so I go the same way with you for this game for sure. Dolphins started off on a hot streak. Obviously, we saw Tua came out there slinging it from week one. I mean, they even beat the Bills. But ever since Tua got hurt, first off, Jalen Waddle has really not produced anything for the
Yep.
team. And I noticed that not only watching it, but we were at the Jets game this past weekend versus the Dolphins.
He did
And
not get involved at all.
yeah, I think he's on my fantasy team. I think he put up like 3.9 points, maybe 5 points max. But like it's like a one-dimensional team again. Like we were just talking, like when the passing game is limited, and even when you have receivers like that, and it's still limited. Like you're gonna struggle. And the running backs aren't bad. Like Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds both have ridiculous speed. And I think that once they get in the open field, it's hard to beat that. But
Yeah.
you got to get them in the open field.
Yeah.
So, I definitely go the same way. And like you said, Justin Jefferson's having a massive year already. He's probably gonna, in my opinion, finish with 11 touchdowns and 1,500 yards if I had to guess. And I think they're 4-1. They may take the division even. So it's
Yeah, I expect the Dolphins to try and rely on that run game.
yeah.
Being limited, starting the rookie again, Skylar Thompson.
Yeah, it's kind of like what else are you gonna do?
They're really in a rough decline. They started season 3-0.
Yeah.
Now they're in danger of reaching 500 with a third straight loss. So
I wouldn't mind that. I mean, as a New England fan.
Yeah, me as well. But
Yeah, and that actually brings us to the next game.
yeah, so our next game is the 2-3 New England Patriots, your team, at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland is favored by 2.5 points.
Well, it's tough because as a Patriot fan, I want to say the Patriots, coming off arguably one of the most impressive defensive showings of the season, if not the most impressive. They literally shut out the top scoring offense.
Yep.
Held them to 0. And I also saw some stat that it's the first time in NFL history that a team was able to stop the opposing team 6 times in a row on 4th down. Or something like that, which is like mind-blowing because you look at their roster and like as a Patriot fan I could say this, the roster is not all that. We have rookie Jack Jones who's starting to come into his own. He has only had 2 starts, 2 interceptions, 1 in each start. Granted, one of them is Jared Goff, and the other one was just like I just guess Aaron Rodgers didn't see him. But once again, I mean, I look at it like they have a good chance. My problem is Ramondre Stevenson's going to get all the carries, which makes it tough because he's going to wear down because Damian Harris is, I don't know if he's out yet, but he's definitely questionable with a hamstring injury.
Yeah, that'd be a big loss.
Yeah, and then on the other side, you look at the Cleveland Browns, you literally have one of the best teams on paper, in my opinion. If Deshaun Watson was playing right now, I think that it would be like a -8 line.
Yeah.
Just because that's that dimension once again. He's a quarterback who could run, he can and move with the ball, and he's also just so skilled as it is.
Yeah.
I also fucking love their running game, Cleveland. I mean,
Cleveland's run game has been unstoppable to start the season. This has been a rough season for Cleveland, though. Although the run game's been getting going, they're 2-3. They have 3 losses by a combined of only 6 points. So they're just losing, like, heart-wrenching games.
Yeah.
And one thing to watch is that Ramondre Stevenson is coming off his best game of the year. He had over 160 rushing yards.
Best game of his career.
Yeah.
Even.
And Cleveland struggled against the run game last week. The Chargers with Austin Eckler put up over 238 yards total rushing yards against them. So.
Oh, I like my odds even better now.
But although I said that, I do like Cleveland in this game. They're at home. They're hungry for a win. They've been playing better than their record is. So I expect them to figure it out and get the win.
Yeah, the other thing too that plays in Cleveland's favor that I didn't mention is that Bailey Zappi, the 3rd string, very similar to the Dolphins, is going to be in the game, and that's limiting the passing game. As even though he was involved in passing more, it's still only his 3rd start. They never built the offense around him, and being a third stringer, he never got the reps in the offseason. So he's come in there. I mean, he played great with Jacoby Myers last week. Believe Jacoby Myers scored a touchdown.
He had a good game.
Yeah, so like he's starting to build up that chemistry. He's played solid so far. Like, I mean, he was 17 for 21 last week. Granted, it was the worst defense in the league. But at the same time, you know, I'd like to see. I mean, he held his own versus Green Bay. And I think it's going to be a fun game to watch regardless of the outcome. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, I expect a close game as well.
And then that brings us to the next game, which would be the 3-2 San Francisco 49ers at the 2-3 Atlanta Falcons. San Francisco is -5.5 favorites. What do you think?
Well, I like the Niners in this game. I mean, the Niners are coming off probably their best game of the year, where they just crushed a beat-up and bad Panthers team, and which led to Matt Rule's firing. So they're firing on all cylinders. The only thing to watch is that the Niners are pretty banged up now. Yeah. Nick Bosa got hurt in that game as well. I think he's questionable for this game. And it's going to be interesting to see how they perform at the Falcons.
Absolutely, and I definitely agree with you. I mean, I'd take the 49ers without a doubt. That's with or without Nick Bosa. You know, Jimmy Garoppolo has played decent. He's not winning them games. He's not losing them games. He's just there, in my opinion. But Jeff Wilson, the running back, massive game last week.
Yeah.
I really liked watching him play. What's his name playing? Drake London.
I think he's questionable to play.
Questionable.
Yeah.
Drake London is one of my favorite receivers in the draft. I know he was the first one taken.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, 6'5", ridiculous speed. Like, how can you beat that? Like, if he had a better quarterback, like I think Mariota's towards the bottom of the barrel. I mean, he was a backup at one point.
Yeah.
Like, I think that Drake London, even as a rookie, could have put up like 1,200 yards. But you know, once again, the Niners have an awesome defense, even with injuries. But there are a ton.
Yeah.
But I still definitely take the Niners. Better offense, better defense, better coaching for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, can't beat the coaching staff there either.
And they're rolling right now. I mean, they're firing. Since Trey Lance has gone down, the team has really played a lot better, honestly.
Yeah.
They started the season rough against the Bears on that terrible game, but they've been on a roll. The defense is firing, and
I think it's crazy, too, because, like, you know, you look at the 49ers, and, like, me personally, I wanted Trey Lance to play this year, and I thought he was going to have a ridiculous, I consider a rookie season, because, you know, he didn't get much play time last year.
Yeah.
It sucks to watch him go down with an injury, you know, and I'm not going to say that it's better for the team for him to be injured, but record-wise, they've performed better as a unit with Jimmy Garoppolo, and that must just have to do with the fact that, one, Jimmy Garoppolo has more experience in the NFL. He's definitely more comfortable. He's not worried about trying to extend plays with his legs because that's not the player he is.
And that's how Trey Lance got hurt, too, on rushing.
Yeah, and that was actually a designed run to him. Yeah. It wasn't even like he, you know, tried to scramble instead of make the throw. They said run it up the middle.
Yep.
What was his injury? Was it ankle?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think it's ankle.
It was a pretty ugly looking injury too.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't his ACL, but nonetheless, you know, I hope he gets better. I hope that he is the franchise quarterback for them down the road. But likewise, I definitely take the Niners.
And that brings us to our next game, the 3-2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the 1-4 Pittsburgh Steelers. Tampa Bay is favored by 8 points in this game. Who do you like?
How can you not take the Bucs? Yeah. Like this is the only game, like, and I know you can never say in the NFL that like there's guarantees. This is the one game I guarantee this week will be a blowout. I mean, look last week with the Bills versus the Steelers.
The Bills killed them, and
not only that, obviously Tom Brady doesn't have an arm like Josh Allen, but I remember at the Jets game looking, you know, they have the red zone up on the board, and then it popped up a stat, and it said Gabriel Davis, 2 receptions, 100-something yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
And, like, I got home, I look, 98-yard touchdown for one of them, and the other one was like
And that second touchdown,
60-something
Minka
yards.
Fitzpatrick got bullied on that ball.
Yeah.
He had that interception in his
Yeah,
hands,
it was in his
but
hands, and Gabriel
he
Davis
just ripped it
literally
away
took
from
it out.
him. Yeah.
That was nuts. But once again, the Steelers haven't been scoring well on offense, averaging 15.4 yards per or points per game. So a little bit over 2 touchdowns. And then on top of that, you're playing Tom Brady. It doesn't matter if you put Tom Brady on a JV team, in high school. That's how he's played in New England. And I could say that as a fan, never had a ridiculous roster. He's always had a couple playmakers, and a decent coach or
And the
a
offense
Hall of Fame coach.
is healthy now.
Yeah,
It's fully healthy. They had 2 straight games where they put up over 21 points. They're starting to find their groove.
absolutely.
And seeing the way the Steelers gave up so many points last week, I expect it to be the similar situation here.
Definitely. And I actually expect George Pickens to get involved a lot more.
Yeah.
And not to say he hasn't been involved a lot already.
He's been getting the targets out of the group, definitely.
Absolutely. And it's crazy because, I know we talked about it last week, or I keep saying last week, but first episode. They're one of the best teams at drafting wide receivers.
It's crazy.
If you have good people to throw the ball to, it has to help your quarterback, obviously.
Yeah.
Tom Brady literally did not want to play with the Patriots anymore because they wouldn't give him weapons. That's literally one of the biggest reasons he's not in New England still.
Yeah. And another storyline to look at in this game is Kenny Pickett's still looking for his first passing touchdown.
He didn't throw. Oh, because they only scored 3 points, right?
He got 2 rushing touchdowns against the Jets. He's still looking for his first passing touchdown.
Well, how many did they score though over in Buffalo? Was it only 3?
I believe so.
So yeah, I mean, offense can barely move the ball, or even if they can move it, it's not resulting in points.
Too.
Yeah, that too. And I mean, it's not going to happen versus Tampa.
Playing in front of the home crowd, the crowd loves Kenny so far too.
It doesn't matter if he throws 10 interceptions; the crowd will be chanting Kenny.
Yeah,
that's
when he
awesome.
Came into that game, they were going absolutely insane against the Jets, and
I don't blame them.
I'm just gonna hope for that same spark and.
Yeah, but you have the Bucks winning too.
Yeah, I have the Bucks.
Yeah. But with that brings us to the 2-3 Cincinnati Bengals at the 2-3 New Orleans Saints. Cincinnati is a favorite with a -1.5 spread. What do you think about that game?
Well, I like the Bengals in this game, although they've really still trying to find their own groove. But I think that they're desperate for this win because they just lost a huge divisional game against the Ravens on Sunday night. And I think that they need to prove to themselves that they're still capable of being that team that made the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said last week, I know you had mentioned they're in a crazy slump.
Yeah.
They were competitive versus the Ravens, who arguably have MVP quarterback this year in Lamar Jackson. Defense of the Ravens has always been fairly solid, and it came down to an extra or a field goal at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Last week with the Saints, I remember once again talking about being at the Jets game. Taysom Hill had 3 touchdowns before I left the game.
Yeah, it was insane.
And that's not gonna happen again. He maybe he scores 1. But there's no shot that this guy gets in the end zone that much this game. But I'm really surprised on how close the spread is.
Yeah.
And I don't think Chris Olave is playing.
Yeah, he's still dealing with the concussion.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's gonna play.
So I mean, what are they gonna do? They're just gonna have to give that ball to Alvin Kamara all game.
Yeah. I think they're going to heavily rely on him again. And one big matchup to watch is Marshawn Lattimore, the Saints' best cornerback, against Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase got locked down last week against Marlon Humphrey, so it's going to be interesting to see if he can have a bounce-back game.
You see, I have a weird take on Marshawn Lattimore. I respect anybody in the NFL, first off, before I say this. Marshawn Lattimore had a ridiculously productive rookie season. Everyone knows that. We all talked about it. I think that year Alvin Kamara won Offensive Player of the Year and Offensive Rookie of the Year, and Lattimore won Defensive Rookie of the Year, if I believe. Same team. It was crazy because I think they were both the same year. But however it's been, Marshawn Lattimore, to me, is still good, but I don't think he's like blow me like out of the water type. That sounded really wrong, but but Jamar Chase, you could almost say the same thing. Like I love Jamar Chase, not the same way that I'm slandering on Marshawn Lattimore. Jamar Chase is freaking awesome, but even his stats, I don't have them. I could pull them up quick.
I'm expecting this game to be a high-scoring game. The Saints were
I
a
can see
big
it.
high-scoring game last week.
Yeah.
The Bengals haven't really been involved in a high-scoring game yet, but I think that their offense is starting to get like they need a click, and this is a big game for them, so I expect it to be high-scoring.
So do I. I just got Jamar Chase's stats here. So he's had 32 receptions for 343 yards and 2 touchdowns this year. I can't pull up.
Which is still solid numbers, but
It's
not like
yeah,
it's
it's
not the top of the
solid.
league
I
right
mean,
now.
he's projected this year to have 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Which is a great year. The thing is you look last year where he was averaging some ridiculous yards per reception, and this year it's dropped to 10.
It could also be a factor of just getting the other receivers involved more. He's not just getting the ball as much as he did last year.
That's fair. I mean, you look at like Tyler Boyd here, for example. He's getting 15 yards a catch.
Yeah.
So literally 5 yards more a catch. Look at T. Higgins. He's getting the same thing, 15 yards a catch. But they're not targeted as much as Jamar, but they are involved a lot more than last year.
Yeah.
So I still take the Bengals. I hope they do have a bounce back game like you were talking about. I hope that they end up doing well because, I mean, who doesn't like Joe Burrow? Who doesn't like Jamar Chase? Who doesn't like that connection? Who doesn't like the stories on that team? And just the fact that they went from being one of the worst teams in the NFL within a couple seasons to now being in the Super Bowl with last year.
Yep.
Who read that team? Was it me or you?
I read that game.
You read that game? Awesome. So on to the next game. The 3-2 Baltimore Ravens at the 4-1 New York Giants. Baltimore is favorited with a -6 spread. This game is the most interesting game of the week to me, in all honesty. But what do you think about this game?
Well, I'm very high on this game as well. There's a lot of storylines going into this. Number one, the Giants have been outplaying like what their expectations were going into the season.
Definitely.
You also have Wink Martindale, who's the former Ravens defensive coordinator.
Yep.
Who's having a great year for the Giants so far. So, and he also knows Lamar because he would see him in practice every single day.
That is true. I didn't even think of that.
So it's going to be interesting to see what the defense does to try and limit Lamar.
Yeah.
Especially the defense has performed very well so far this year.
Absolutely. I call this the most interesting game of the week behind or
Yeah, I was gonna stop you. There's a couple of other good games we're gonna get to.
Yeah, but I really like
Bills.
this. Chiefs-Bills obviously is going to be super fun to watch. Like I said, the Patriots and the Browns are going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, you could even make an argument for the Jets and the Packers to be a fun game to watch, the way the Jets played last week.
Yeah.
The reason I say this is an interesting game is because I think that this game is going to solidify what people think of Brian Daboll.
Yeah, I mean, if they win this game, there's no doubt people are going to really jump on board and think they're legit.
Yeah, but I don't even think they have to win the game for people to think positively about Brian Daboll.
Yeah.
I just think that they can't get shut out. Or not even shut out, but they have to be competitive.
6 points is a lot.
It is favored by a lot.
I wouldn't necessarily pick the Giants to win the game, but I would take them plus the points because they're home dogs, 6 points.
Yeah. I definitely like them with more points for sure.
Yeah.
Than I like to give them more credit than they're being favorited as, if that makes sense. Their defense though, been a huge fan of watching. Julian Love, I think the guy's name is. What is he? Is he a safety or a corner?
Safety, yeah.
Every time I turn on the game, I see Julian Love making a play.
Yeah.
He destroyed somebody on the Cowboys when I was watching. Yeah. Xavier McKinney, one of my favorite players when he was drafted.
Yeah, he's a monster. He missed like a lot of his rookie year. I think he got hurt before the season started, but
I think he lost. I think he missed the entire year.
Yeah, since he's gotten healthy, he's been a great impact player for the Giants defense.
Yeah, one problem with their offense, Saquon Barkley is awesome. I'm really happy that he's back.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with the team is how they get their yards, and what I mean by that is I don't like how much they rely on Daniel Jones's legs.
Yeah.
They have no choice because of their wide receiver core. and
everybody's
Kenny
banged
Golladay
up.
is
Yeah.
garbage now all of a sudden.
Yep.
Everyone else is banged up. So I think that if they right now they're 4-1. I
Yeah.
think even if they lose this game, I don't think that they're or say even if they win this game, I should say, I still don't see them going more than like 10-7, and that's still generous to me because you're talking about like how they were in previous years. 10-7 is a generous record, but they go 10-7, they're probably gonna have like a 20, probably like a 22, 23, 24 pick in the draft. I don't know how their picks are. I don't know if they have any, if they don't have any, but they need to hit at wide receiver.
Well, I think they're also waiting on Wandale Robinson. They picked him in the second round last year, and he was having a great training camp, but he got hurt. He hasn't really played
That's right.
so far this season. And we have Kadarius Toney, who has been hurt all season as well. He's a second year receiver. He was picked in the first round though, so
Yeah,
and he provides like some dynamic abilities too. He's able to run the ball with some jet sweeps, and he's just very
that's true.
shifty when the ball's in his hands.
One last thing I really like about the Giants this year that they haven't done a lot in previous years, from my understanding and from like me seeing, I really like that they're incorporating the Wildcat this year.
Yeah.
When you have a player like Saquon Barkley, find a way to give him the ball,
Yep.
no matter what. And putting him at Wildcat, even if he's going to throw, which he rarely does from the position, at least you're basically forcing any defense to put more people in the box to stop that run.
Yep.
And if he doesn't, he could throw the ball. I mean, he's not their quarterback, and he's definitely not as accurate, but
I remember he had a throw to Odell at one point.
that one time, yeah, that was awesome. But that brings us to the end of this team, and unfortunately, it's time to take a break. When we get back, we're going to talk about the New York Jets at the Green Bay Packers.
Season so far, and I look for the Jets to get Garrett Wilson back involved. He had that huge game against the Browns, and he hasn't really done much since Zach Wilson got healthy, and um he's returned from his knee injury.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for the Zach Wilson to number one not turn the ball over. He didn't turn over the ball last week. They won by 23 points.
And that's what happens when you protect the ball.
Just protect the ball. Don't give Aaron Rodgers short fields unnecessarily, and just keep pounding the ball with Breece Hall as well.
Yeah.
That run game was going crazy last week, so expect a lot more of that.
You see, I honestly might take the plus in points here.
Yeah, I like them plus the 7.5. It's a lot. It's a big number. I mean,
and the reason is similar to yours. Like, if they protect that ball and focus on giving Aaron Rodgers a short field and giving the ball to their two backs, I mean, obviously you have a great receivers there, in my opinion now, especially with Garrett Wilson, and Corey Davis has been playing really well.
Great year.
Yeah. I think, even Breece in the passing game has been awesome. I mean, last week he had 80 yards or 79 yards on that wheel route?
Yeah, it was 2 receptions for 100 yards.
Yeah, and that first one, or I don't know if it was his first, but whatever the one with the big one.
Wheel route,
yeah, so that wheel route, I remember watching it, and like he got contact at like the 30.
Yeah, no,
he carried the entire team.
He was getting towards the end zone.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a big play, but he just kept running and running and running, just carrying the guy with him. That second catch was also great. He has great hands. That's a tough catch for a running back.
Yeah. My one problem is I still take the Packers here.
I still think the Packers are going to win this game.
Yeah, but I think it'll be closer. Yeah. The reason why, though, is because I'm talking more as like being a Patriot fan and watching them play. I didn't get to watch a lot of the Packers play this past week, but I remember I watched every minute of the Patriot-Packers game. I think that obviously Zach Wilson's a better quarterback than Bailey Zappi. They're more dimensional than they were with the Patriots. Defense has been solid. You have Sauce Gardner, so that's similar to the Patriots, but I still think the Patriots' defense is better, at least statistically, maybe not player-wise. But once again, the biggest thing is you're playing Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is still a Hall of Fame quarterback. Everyone knows he's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
That's one thing that scares me is I feel like the Packers are going to be pissed off They blew a game against the Giants in London last week. Jair Alexander had some comments that Aaron Rodgers did not agree with. He was saying how he's not worried as of right now, but if they lose to the Jets, like acting like they're so low to them,
Yeah.
that if they lose to them, then he'll be worried. And Aaron Rodgers was pissed off about that too. So I feel like we
But
could be
the
catching them
the
at the wrong
Jets are
time.
definitely fired up hearing that too.
Yeah,
That goes both
yeah,
ways.
it could be. I mean, it's bulletin board material, so
Yeah.
we'll see how it affects how each team plays.
I'm definitely excited though.
I think it's gonna be a good game though, and although I think it's always difficult to win at Lambeau, which is probably.
That's another
I
thing.
mean, it's huge. I think if this game is in MetLife, I might take the Jets to win this game, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah, I think the Jets playing the Dolphins last week at MetLife, watching or just now seeing what that environment was like, that had to play into that win.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
and it's going to go the same way for Green Bay playing at Green Bay.
Yeah.
Uh, that brings us to the next team.
So our next game is the 2-3 Jacksonville Jaguars at the 2-2-1 Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are favored by 1.5 points.
I don't agree at all in that game. I take Jacksonville by a landslide. And I know that that's not what the spread says, and the spread obviously knows more than me. But how can you take the Colts when they can't protect Matt Ryan?
Yeah.
I mean, literally, they've had more line change this year than most teams have in an entire season, and it's week. That's through 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Uh, Jacksonville Jaguars defense. You have great pass rushers, both rookie and vet, who are going to eat that line up.
Yeah.
And if Matt Ryan can't throw the ball, he has playmakers. Obviously, I think it's Alec Pierce
Yeah.
and Michael Pittman. You have both of them. Both, in my opinion, could be one of the best, duos within the next couple years. Problem is, though, if you can't get the ball to them, who cares?
Mm.
Um, is what's it called playing? Is Jonathan Taylor playing?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if he's playing or not either.
Yeah.
But I know I talked about it in the last episode. Jonathan Taylor's not having the same kind of year that he had last year. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson has more yards than him. Obviously, he's played every game, but he splits carries. Naheem Hines got hurt. Uh, it's you're one dimensional, and then the one dimension's being challenged by crappy O line play.
Says Jonathan Taylor was in practice today. So.
Wasn't practice. Okay, so even if you expect him to play, that's going to make it tougher. But I have a feeling, that gut feeling that it's the Jacksonville Jaguars game to win. I know they're playing at Indianapolis, but I think the Jaguars won't have a problem with that. And I also understand that the Colts have a couple solid players on defense. You got Yannick Ngakwe and DeForest Buckner both on the edge.
Yeah, and Gilmore as well.
Yeah, and also Kwity Paye.
Yeah.
And I think they're all going to be in the backfield a lot. But when you have two solid running backs that you're going to be giving the ball to, you have Christian Kirk, who so far, has both proved people wrong and lived up to everyone's expectations, regarding his contract and him as a player. But I don't know. I just really feel like this is the Jaguars' game to win. I don't know. What do you think?
I actually go the other way. I think the Colts are gonna win this game. I mean, the Jaguars are coming off an abysmal game. They only scored 6 points at home.
True.
But you could say on the flip side, the Colts are coming off a terrible game too. But they stole a game. They got to be happy about it. They played probably their worst game of the season.
Definitely.
Still won, scoring only 12 points on the road.
And not for nothing, the Broncos' offense has playmakers.
Yeah.
They're not producing as much, but
Yeah, Stephon Gilmore was locked down.
that too.
Cortland Sutton had the one play where he stiff armed Gilmore and he tried to flex on him, but then Gilmore
Ending
came
of the
back and
game.
had the two biggest plays of the game.
Yeah.
Just two lockdown plays, a pick and a game clinching pass deflection. So I expect Trevor Lawrence to have more problems facing that Colts defensive line that's been getting after the quarterback themselves. So I mean, I expect it to be a good game though. This is a big game for that division.
Absolutely.
Decide the AFC South, even though the Titans are in the lead right now, they're on their bye week.
Yeah, I'm
But
definitely excited to see how this game goes.
it's
And
gonna
I
be very interesting.
think I don't know if you had just said it. My mind just exploded, but could be anybody's game.
Yeah, and I mean, I like the Colts being at home.
Yeah.
They got a good home field advantage. They beat the Chiefs at home for their first win.
That is true.
Which
One of their wins is versus the Chiefs, which
which
is
is one of
impressive.
those like the NFL doesn't make any sense type games.
Then
But
they were tied with the Texans, right?
yeah, they tied the Texans
Week
in week
one.
one. So the Colts are having a
It's
really weird season.
yeah. I
Tying the
mean,
Texans, disappointing themselves the first week. You had beating the Chiefs, huge shock,
yeah,
and then you had last week, which was a terrible game.
yeah,
But it's gonna be interesting to see how this one plays out. And now with that, we go into our 4:05 kickoffs.
yeah.
The first game is the 2-3 Arizona Cardinals at the 2-3 Seattle Seahawks, and Arizona is favored by -3 points. Who do you like in this game?
So I'm taking Arizona. But I think it's gonna be a good game. That's why I think the spread is so low.
Mm.
Uh, I think Arizona will cover that. Still, even though it's -3, but or I think Arizona will cover that, even though I say it's going to be a good game. And the reason I say it's going to be a good game is because Geno Smith has really been on like
Shocking.
another level in like a
Yep.
shocking way this year.
Yep.
Metcalf and Lockett, obviously both awesome weapons, and Geno Smith has utilized them already very well. I'm excited though to see. Once again, this is kind of like take with a grain of salt. I'm excited to see how the Seahawks play without Rashad Penny. I wish Rashad Penny was on the field. I like him as a
Yeah.
player. It sucks that he's now going to miss the rest of the season. Hope he gets better sooner than later. But I'm excited to see how they're going to now, once again, back to that dimensional shit. Now they're going to be less of a two-dimensional team.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how they get the rest of their backs involved. And I'm also a massive Kyler Murray hater, but so it means something if I say I think the Cardinals are going to win. But what do you think?
I actually go the other way with this game again.
Do you think the Seahawks are going to pull this off?
I like the Seahawks in this game. I think that they've been playing much better than people expect them to play. Although the Cardinals did have a great defensive game last week, holding the Eagles up to like 20 points. But I don't think that the Cardinals win this game. Playing in Seattle is very difficult to begin with. You have
Yeah,
the 12th man there. And then on top of that, Geno Smith is just having a stupid year. He's leading the league in pass rating so far,
yeah,
which has been crazy. He has the two weapons in Metcalf and Lockett, who have been insane, like you mentioned. And although they lost Rashad Penny, I think that Kenneth Walker is very talented. I think he'll step up.
I'm excited to watch him play.
Yeah,
I'm really excited to watch him play.
I like to see him get a bigger role. So
Yeah,
that's the NFL next man up. And another thing to note is Tariq Woolen, the rookie cornerback, actually has 3 interceptions already this year.
really impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, cornerbacks. I know I mentioned it last week.
He was a late round pick too.
Yeah, he wasn't a top pick, and I think I like cornerbacks as rookies because it either goes one of two ways. You either struggle and eventually put it together, or you're just great off the rip.
Yeah.
You look at guys like Jalen Ramsey, AJ Terrell, right off the rip.
Yeah.
You look at other guys,
A lot of corners can get picked on in the early part of their careers.
just
but-
literally get dunked on.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what's his name got his first interception, Derek Stingley, but he struggled
Yeah, he
more
did.
than he has produced. And he was considered the best corner on a lot of people's boards behind Sauce or even above him and other people. So, it can go both ways, and it's cool to see that, one of these guys is having a breakout year as a rookie already. He could potentially go for 6 or 7 interceptions this year, or he
Yeah.
may slow down and finish with 3. But even 3 is a very, very, very good year.
Yeah, he's having a great season so far. Another thing to note, Kyler Murray has not been productive this season. He only has
Which
6
is-
yards per completion so
Which
far.
is good to hear.
And I think a lot of that has to do with missing DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, because right now he only has AJ Green and Marquise Brown.
And I think once they get him back into the fold, you'll see them start to come together as an offense. But
I could see that.
that is definitely contributing to their offensive woes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Marquise Brown fan, which is funny because I'm not a Kyler Murray fan.
He had a ridiculous catch against the Panthers
Oh, did he?
in their game 2 weeks ago.
Was that
He's
the one
having
where
a
he
good season.
was that the one where he put up like 150 yards or something?
I think so. Yeah, he had a moss. It was pretty sick.
Yeah, I like him. But that brings us, speaking of the Panthers, to the 1-4 Panthers at the 2-3 Los Angeles Rams, and no surprise, LA's favored to win. The spread is minus 10.5 to LA, to the Los Angeles Rams. So what do you think about that game? Who do you think is going to pull off the win?
Well, I think the defending champs need. They need
they
this
they
game.
need the win.
Yeah, they need this to prove themselves.
Absolutely.
One big thing to note though is Brian Burns going up against that banged up and horrendous Rams offensive line. He already has 4 sacks on the year. I expect him to get at least another sack this game.
Easy.
And I think the Rams really need to not only win this game but cover that spread, just to prove themselves
Absolutely.
that there is that big of a gap between them and the Panthers, who have been a terrible team so far to start this year.
Absolutely. And I will 100% agree with you about this team. I definitely take LA minus 10.5. Brian Burns, like you said, is a great player. He produced for 4 sacks already.
Yep.
But I don't see that being a factor in this game. And the reason I say that is because of the fact that when you have an offense with Cooper Kupp, I think it instantly doesn't matter. As long as you even have half a second to throw the ball.
It's going to be interesting, though, him against J.C. Horn as well, who's having a great
Yeah, he's been good.
Nobody's been
I'm
able
really
to stop
excited.
Kupp so far. So.
Exactly. So now it's up. It's like next man up, like you were
Yeah.
saying. Like, let's see who could do it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, though. P.J. Walker is starting this week, huh?
Yeah. Baker got
guaranteed
yeah.
LA blows them out of the water. And they're covering.
Yep.
Guys, that's a guaranteed minus 10.5 there.
And another thing is that this is the first game after Matt Rule got fired, so they have a new interim head coach. So that's another thing to note. But one interesting stat is that Matthew Stafford is 158 passing yards from passing John Elway for 11th all time on the NFL list, which I think will be an interesting storyline to watch.
Absolutely. But with that being said, going to take a break quick. It's not my timer, but I'm going to see if I could fix some of the surround sounds that you could probably hear. So I will be back shortly. Sorry for the break, guys. We're back, and that brings us to the 4:25 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. What's the first team, Paul?
So we have the best matchup of the week by far. The 4-1 Bills at the 4-1 Kansas City Chiefs. The Bills are favored minus 2.5. This is the first time that Patrick Mahomes is an underdog at home.
Ever.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, I don't take that at all. I'm 100% taking the Kansas City Chiefs money line this week.
I'm with you.
The reason for me personally, I mean, look at the way Patrick Mahomes has played this year.
Yep.
I mean, in my opinion, I know I had made a short and a TikTok about it. Patrick Mahomes made my favorite play of the year when he spun around the defender on the Bucs and threw a touchdown. Sick play. Literally the god of extending plays. And on top of that, he's at home. And he's also my MVP frontrunner. I mean, when I made the video, I think he had 14 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions or something like that. 70 or 67% completion percentage. Last week he threw for 4 touchdowns after being trailed by 20. And no interceptions. I mean, the dude is literally lights out, playing awesome this year now, and he's limited the turnovers, in my opinion, because he's not trying to force deep balls to Tyreek Hill. I don't know how many of his interceptions came on deep balls, but they had to also come from extending the play.
He said himself, too, that this not having Tyreek Hill is helping him go through his progressions more, not just looking for Tyreek Hill, seeing where he is on the field, going through all of his receivers, just taking what the defense is giving.
Yeah. I know we could also talk about like the rematch from last year when it was a shootout, and that was an awesome game to watch. Like, I think no matter what, this game is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, the last two minutes of that game, you had just touchdown. Chiefs got the ball back with 13 seconds, down by 3. They somehow were able to get a game-tying field goal. That game went to overtime. They won the coin toss. First drive touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think, and that's what actually changed the rule, right?
Yeah, they
literally changed the overtime rules for playoffs.
Yeah.
Just because, like, how do you end a game like that? You know, one thing, obviously, the Chiefs are never known for their defense. I mean, they have Chris Jones, a couple other playmakers, Ajarius Sneed, who's having a great year. So I think when you have Gabe Davis and Josh Allen on a team, or Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs on a team, how do you cover both of them?
Yeah.
And that's one of those duos that you always
Gabe
have to be
Davis
watched
went
for.
off last year in that game as well.
Yeah,
I believe he had 4 touchdowns in that game.
something
He
crazy.
was
That was like
ridiculous.
one of his breakout
Yeah.
games.
But
But
one
I'm excited
thing,
to watch.
they've added Von Miller to that defense, so they're going to be getting after
That is
Patrick
true.
Mahomes more than they did last year.
But that's also why the first thing I had said, or not the first, but part of it was Patrick Mahomes is so good at extending plays.
Yeah,
Like I literally think he's the best in the NFL at extending plays.
yeah,
Easy. Like who else can do that play that I
yeah.
was talking about? I would
The Bucks play. Yeah,
maybe I could see like Justin Herbert making that play, or like even in my opinion, like I hate him, but Kyler Murray or Jalen Hurts.
yeah. Kyler
Like
Murray has a great freestyle ability. Just play
yeah,
breaks down, just freaking scramble back and forth forever.
definitely not seeing Tom Brady make that play anytime soon.
But the one thing that scares me for the Chiefs in this game is that the Bills have had the loss from last season, just stinging.
Yeah,
One thing on their mind since last year, the entire offseason they were thinking about that loss.
yeah,
They're hungry, they want revenge. They've lost 2 years in a row against them in the playoffs.
yeah. This game is like the
It's a
one
huge
game. Yeah,
revenge game for the Bills, which is I think contributes to why they're favored. Also, they've been a Vegas favorite to win the Super Bowl this entire season.
yo,
So this is a huge test for both teams to. It's just gonna determine who has the who has the better team so far.
definitely. And one other thing about this game is like was I guess I think it definitely wasn't last year. I think it was 2 years ago. Was this is Stephon Diggs' third year on the team, or
I
second?
think it's third year. Yeah, it's his third year because after they lost 2 years ago, I remember he was staying on the
That's what
field
I'm
for
trying
a
to get at.
celebration.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't know if that was last year or
yeah,
the year before, but like that this game burns the Buffalo Bills as a fan base, as a
yeah.
team, as players, as coaches, as everyone.
It means a lot to
So
them. Yeah,
definitely. But they're also playing at Kansas City, which I don't know if we talked about it at all. But like
yeah,
Arrowhead Stadium is one of the hardest stadiums to play in,
yeah.
and like you said, that's why he's never been an underdog at home.
Which I find
But
crazy as well because in his first starts, that means that he was also favorited.
yeah,
Since he became the starter, so it's pretty
but
incredible.
I think that's because his first ever start
He took over the team
was
from Alex Smith, I think, and
like the end of the year. But was it at home or away?
probably at home. But they were a ready-made team when he kind of took over. But
Yeah, that's probably why. Um,
but it's
but
gonna be an interesting match. I mean, Josh Allen
yeah,
versus Patrick Mahomes. In my opinion, the two best quarterbacks in the league.
absolutely,
I don't think that there's anybody
absolutely.
better than the two of them. I still think Mahomes is a better quarterback than Josh Allen. He just that freestyle ability. I like that he doesn't
Like
have to
who
lower the
would you
shoulder and try and act like a running back. Also, I think
yeah
that's gonna come back to bite Josh Allen.
who would you take as your starter if you had to choose right now? Like if in the NFL.
Oh, easily Patrick Mahomes. Just his ability to freestyle and just make the ridiculous throws, whatever arm angle he needs, throwing it around the offensive lineman, throwing it through bodies, just absolute dimes. And this Chiefs offense as a whole has been clicking now.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think that's gonna be the
And
game to watch this week for
one
sure.
thing, last week they came back from down double digits. I saw a stat that Patrick Mahomes has an above 500 record when down double digits,
How
which
crazy
is
is
just
that?
stupid. It's
But
stupid.
down double
It makes
digits.
no sense.
That's ridiculous. I'm excited to
You
watch that game
you
for
have the
sure.
Texans game where they were in the playoffs where they were down double digits. They came back. That was a big game. That entire postseason where they won the Super Bowl. They were down multiple scores in each game.
Really.
I'm pretty sure. So it just shows that they don't care where the game is. They just think that they're always gonna win.
Yeah. So that would definitely be interesting to watch. But with that being said, we have to go and take a break to go over our last two teams. But when we get back, we're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys versus the Eagles, which is obviously going to be an interesting game, and then the Denver Broncos at the Chargers, which could be an interesting game as well. But this is why I should have listened to Paul earlier when he told me to cut the film and start over, and I didn't listen. So we'll be back in a minute. All right, guys, we are back, and that brings us to the 8:20 p.m. kickoff for Sunday. So the primetime game of the day.
So for Sunday Night Football, we have an NFC East matchup. The winner takes the division lead as of right now. You have the 4-1 Dallas Cowboys at the 5-0 Eagles, and Philadelphia is favored by 6 points in this game.
Yeah, I'll take Philadelphia with that. I'm a massive Jalen Hurts fan. That's why I took him in fantasy this year. Still, I think is in the contention or in the run for MVP. You know, he may not be the most proficient passing the ball, but it's the leadership he has. It's the ability to run with his legs. Uh, and then, he's still a good passer, when it's all said and done. Other thing, Cooper Rush is still the starter for the Cowboys. Although he's undefeated, my problem is that they're primarily a rush team now. If you stop the rush, you beat the Cowboys.
And they've been relying on that defense, just
Yeah,
performing at a ridiculous level.
that's the other thing. They have a great defense, but so does Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Philadelphia's front seven is, in my opinion, one of the scariest fronts. Like if I was a running back, I don't want to run on Jordan Davis. The rookie that's there.
And they still have Fletcher Cox.
And they still have
too.
Fletcher Cox. I mean, you got two of the scariest D tackles. Like, imagine being a running back and having to run into 700 pounds.
Yeah.
That's not going in your favor. And that's why, when your team is carried by Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, and a good defense, defense only wins games if your offense could even get on the board. And I think that the Eagles have a real chance of keeping Dallas under 2 scores. Philadelphia obviously still needs to produce, but they're playing at Philly. Miles Sanders is on pace for a ridiculous year. He's already had a great year so far. Is it Kenneth Gainwell that's there?
Yeah.
Kenneth Gainwell, one of my favorite backs. Now I say who is there, but played with him on Madden too a lot. But I really think that, when you have 3 threats running the ball, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith on the outside. Is it Dallas Goedert that's still their tight end?
Yeah.
Dallas Goedert, who's a solid tight end, decent line anchored by Jason Kelsey, and then a ridiculous defense, and a great coaching staff still, in my opinion. You can't lose at home. And you're 5-0.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Like, what do you think? You think that they're going to win?
I like this game a lot. I think that 6 points is a lot, though.
You're crazy.
I like the Cowboys +6. I don't think that the Cowboys win this game, but I think it stays within a field goal.
I respect it.
A divisional game. The Cowboys' defense is, monster. Their defensive line is going to give Hurts a big test.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how Hurts responds to that pass rush. You had DeMarcus Lawrence, who's been a monster so far this year. Michael Parsons, who's playing another level.
Lights out. I don't know if he is for you, but he's definitely my defensive player of the year at the moment.
Yeah, he's definitely up there.
Could have won it last year even, with his
Yeah.
stats. I mean, obviously, T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett, obviously every year both have great years. But as a rookie, if he wasn't a rookie, I think he'd be in contention. He was in contention up until week 12 anyway, but not the point, but still.
One thing's going to end. Either Cooper Rush's undefeated as a starter is going to end, or the Philadelphia Eagles being the last remaining undefeated team is going to end.
Which is interesting because both are going to be news or storylines this week. And I know we'll talk about it come Tuesday next week in our 3rd episode going over these games.
And I think another thing is the an analogy towards the Jets. Flacco had a very bad game against the Bengals in his last game as a starter.
Yeah.
But going into that game, it was coming out of the Browns game. They won a miraculous game. People on the radio are starting to say, "Oh, keep Flacco, and he's doing so good." Like, he had a terrible game, which made it so much easier to transition into Zach Wilson.
Yeah, it's true.
Does Cooper Rush show up on Sunday night and have a stinker of a game, and then the Cowboys fans just have an overnight change in their opinion and say, okay, we obviously need to go to Dak Prescott, which he might be healthy for next week?
I like to think that regardless if Cooper Rush has a good game, Cowboys fans are hopefully smart enough to look at the fact that although CeeDee Lamb has played well,
Yeah.
Dak Prescott moves with that passing offense. I mean, usually he's a top 5 passing yards guy.
Yeah. I mean,
So
there's no doubt he's the better quarterback, but sometimes you just gotta stay with the hot hand. But just
I get it. I get
proving
it.
to everybody that he is not. He's a backup quarterback.
Yeah, I think. I
He'll
mean,
make the.
I think he could start on some teams. I know that's
And
like
I
a
think
hot take, but like I think he could be a Falcons starter quarterback.
I don't necessarily think that he would be able to be a starter in this league, but I think that the way he's played, some team's gonna be stupid and pay him some crazy money.
Like Nick Foles.
Yeah, or like Matt Flynn, he had a crazy
He had
game
yeah.
and then just bought into playing, and he was not a great quarterback.
Yeah, it's true too. But before we move on, I want to compare 2 quarterbacks, and who would you rather have start? Marcus Mariota or Cooper Rush?
You gotta go Cooper Rush just because he's been a winner. But I mean, I
But you
think,
still don't think
but I think if
Mariota's
you
a
put him
starting quarterback either.
yeah, but I think if you
Yeah.
put them on the same team, it's just like more comparable.
Sticks and
but
stones.
yeah, it's because Marcus Mariota is also in a much worse situation that Cooper Rush is.
Very true.
Dallas won the division last year. They've been a very solid team, like year in and year out.
Yeah.
Whether or not they go far is another thing, but
Now, how about Mitch Trubisky and Cooper Rush? Money Mitch or Coop?
I mean, I still think Cooper Rush. I mean, Mitch Trubisky played like crap this year.
I gave
too,
you
so,
2
yeah.
ducks. Okay, now here's a hot take. Justin Fields or Cooper Rush?
Oh, definitely Justin Fields.
I take Cooper Rush.
Justin Fields has a higher. I mean, he has a much higher ceiling. I mean, I feel like.
Okay, well, ceiling-wise, definitely, yeah.
I mean, Cooper Rush is like. I feel like Cooper Rush is playing at his ceiling right now. I mean, how much better?
That's true.
How much better is he gonna really look? And he hasn't even.
Well, how would he look, though, if given the team? That's what I'm curious. Because, like, right now, he was just, okay, shit, we need to play him. He has no choice.
Yeah.
Not, this is your team. We're building this offense around you.
Yeah.
Right now, it's still a Dak Prescott offense. And, granted, I still think that I would take Cooper Rush right now. I think Justin Fields, obviously, in the long run. And I'm a Justin Fields fan. I'm an Ohio State fan. But I don't think he's, I mean, I think that he still has more potential. By how much? It's like an exponential, what do you call that curve? Where it's like a lot at first and then it starts to even out, whatever. But I think he's like here. So he could still go up that peak more, but he's going to even out sooner than later.
I don't think there's much more that Cooper Rush can do.
Yeah. But that brings us to the final game for the Week 6, I guess you call it bracket. But that will be on Monday night, 8:15 kickoff, and that will be the 2-3 Denver Broncos at the 3-2 LA Chargers, and LA is a -5-point favorite. I say minus 5 point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, I wish the schedule makers had the ability to see into the future so that they would not keep giving us the Broncos on prime time. This is gonna be their 4th game out of their first 6 games that they were on prime time. You had the Seahawks game to start the season, or that was at least a good game. You had the
I fucking hate the Broncos.
The Niners game where they played like crap as well, and then the Colts game where they played like crap.
A little side note, I took the Broncos to be in the Super Bowl this year because it had stupid odds, but like the odds have like 20, 30x to what they were because of how shitty they're doing now with Denver. And it's crazy because at 2-3, realistically, if everyone was healthy, they could turn it around.
Yep. And
it's not the end of the world still at this point of the season.
Broncos fans are very pissed off. They're underperforming from what their expectations were tremendously.
Yeah.
Nathaniel Hackett's been a terrible first-year head coach. He's been struggling. The game management's been terrible. They've had a lot of injuries. Javonte Williams is out for the season. They placed Justin Simmons, Garrett Bowles, and Ronald Darby on the IR.
Yeah.
Which are 3 huge players for their team.
I think what's it called hurt too? Randy Gregory.
Yeah.
Just a lot of injuries.
I like the Chargers -5 in this game.
So do I. I think they cover.
Yeah, I think they cover as well. Because we also just seen the way the Broncos have played in prime time.
Exactly. I mean, we literally got stuck with the worst game of the year, in my opinion, still, the Broncos-Colts last week.
I mean,
Like,
but it's strange though too because
they
in
got
their
two
other three
primetime
primetime
games.
games, they're 1-2, and like each game's been decided by 3 points or less,
Yeah.
which is strange. Like,
It's very it's an interesting team and not in a good way.
yeah,
You know, not in a bad way, but not in a good way. It's interesting because
and I think this is still a good matchup because it's a divisional game.
yeah,
You have a lot of storylines going into it.
is Justin Herbert still dealing with that chest injury, the broken rib at
I
all?
mean, I'm sure he's still feeling it. Like, I think he's
Because I
still,
think I think that's one of those injuries that doesn't have a cure. It's
yeah,
just deal with it.
yeah. I think he's still dealing with it, but he played well last week, so I don't think it's
Yeah, I mean
gonna
he's still
affect him
Herbo.
too much. Yeah,
I mean I fucking love Justin Herbert. I was really excited when they picked him because of the fact that you have probably the best veteran wide receiver core, as in like both players are like longer time veterans, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are both so good.
Keenan Allen actually didn't play last week, but the funny
Yeah,
thing
he
is
didn't
when
play.
they went for that on that fourth down, he like tweeted out "WTF," like what are we doing? Which, I mean, it goes to show that in that locker room they might think that Brandon Staley is a little bit of a psycho.
Definitely,
Because like,
definitely.
I
I
mean,
think
it's
he's a
one thing to be
psycho.
like aggressive and going for the ball, but like some of these
It's like, what do
decisions
you?
can really cost the team.
Yeah, exactly. They make you. If they work out, they're gonna help the team.
I
If
mean,
they
just like
don't,
that win and go in game last year where he went for it and then it ended up the Raiders ended up beating them instead of tying them.
yeah,
So
unbelievable.
I mean,
But that brings us. Wait, sorry. Is
yeah,
there anything else you want to say?
no, that's
Like I was saying, that brings us to the end though of the Week 6 preview for the NFL. Second podcast has officially wrapped up now. Uh, I know we talked during one of our breaks. We're getting a lot more comfortable doing this. I know we talked at the beginning about it too. Today was a lot more back and forth talking and a lot less talking to the camera, or at least that's what we tried to work on.
yeah,
And I know every week we want to improve on at least one thing. As Mr. B says, for anybody who watches him, make 100 videos when you first start, and by that 100th video, it's gonna be 50 times better than your first video. It's basically impossible for it not. So this week, for example, we were working on the lighting, so that we turned on the ceiling light, moved this light higher up. There's a couple things in editing that I'm going to work on right after we're done with this that we're going to give a shot. The way we talked definitely was a lot different. I feel like there was more information given in less time.
yeah,
Because it's a conversation and that's what we wanted to give to you. If you guys wanted to watch just for news, which, hopefully one day you guys will watch for us to also break news to you. But if you wanted to watch us for news right now, that's why you go to the NFL or ESPN, and it doesn't make sense for us to reiterate it. So, we're happy that we're starting to work together to produce conversation.
yeah, and just getting more comfortable. Like obviously we're gonna pick up chemistry as we continue to make more
Definitely.
podcasts, and that comes from being consistent. We're gonna try and keep it to 2 episodes a week. So this was our second episode this week, but next week the first episode of the week is gonna be a game recap, going through all the games that we just talked about,
Yeah.
how everything actually turned out, whatever whatever interesting storylines in the game, decision making, any big plays, just run down through the list.
And, the other thing with that, too, is even going, like, we both have our computers in front of us, oh my God, in front of us.
In us.
I'm not going to share too much here, but I'll zoom out so you can see. It's not a script, but what it is it's a breakdown of some notes that we want to be able to share with you, whether it's stats, whether it's certain players we want to cover, or stuff like that. And, the more we do behind the scenes will hopefully improve the video and what you see at the end. If I go and spend 20 hours editing right now, you may not even be able to tell that this is our second podcast, which you obviously will, but you get the point. But yeah, I can keep going for days about what the plans are and, the future and blah, blah, blah. But what I will say is for now, thank you guys for joining us for the second podcast. Thank you guys for being there for the first one as well. Our Our socials are down in the description. If you haven't got them already, make sure to follow us there, where we'll be posting throughout the week when podcasts are not being posted. And with that being said, my name is Brandon. This is my co-host Paul, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday.